not at the moment. I work at many pharmacies for my income because I provide services to people. Pharmacy services.
And neither you nor the rest of the board nor the Ministry of Health that governs this has any particular misgivings about that?
No. But I want to kind of hasten to the convenient time at which it is being chosen to jump off and say he doesn't want a public spat with me or tit for tat. I think those were his words. But I find it a little convenient.
Well, according to the report, he says a spat. Health Minister Terence Dialsing says he will not engage in a public spat with the Pharmacy Board President, Andrew Rahaman. I will not engage in a public tit for tat. So this is his words with Mr. Rahaman. To protect the public interest, I will speak when we have a legal solution to the matters advised by the attorneys. That's Mr. Dialsing, Minister Dialsing, being quoted in this report in the papers yesterday.
Right. So I'm finding it is a bit convenient to jump out of the fray because somebody who sent a letter to me, a legal letter to me, leaked it. I didn't leak my own. I had a public press conference and gave it to the media openly. But what I'm saying is when I had questions to answer, he was in a public spat. And now that I gave some questions for him to answer, he doesn't want a public spat. He doesn't want so tit for tat connotes interacting in the public domain. And he interacted in the public domain to give me questions to answer. And now that I am giving him questions to answer, he doesn't want to interact in the public domain anymore. And I want to go into the questions because the ministry said that the pharmacy board, because the failure, they had a press release that discussed the failure of the pharmacy board to issue licenses. And also said, the minister said in the Business Guardian that the ministry has nothing to do with pharmacy licenses. I want to say two things. One, the pharmacy board issues one license to pharmacies. And the Ministry of Health issues 4 licenses to pharmacies. The antibiotics license, the narcotics license, the control license, and the pesticide license. So now that there is this question to clear up, he does not want to have a public tit for tat.
So the licenses to operate, that they rotate on a year-to-year basis. So every year we have to go through, I'm saying we're talking about the members of the public and people who operate pharmacies. Why is this that every year you have to get your license renewed?
So that's what the law says. And remember, it's healthcare. We cannot have people operating on outdated. People die if things are not updated. So I think it's a good thing. It happens in all professions. You have to renew your license to practice every year, and you also need to renew the license for the pharmacy. But I want to hasten to 3 quick things that the minister. Well, I think there's an answer that is required.
Go ahead.
One, the reason why we have not been doing the licenses is because in October, a functionary of the ministry, Ms. Anissa Sibu-Dudnat, she is the principal pharmacist. The secretary registrar got married 4 years ago. All 4 years, they continuing to accept her maiden name. Lo and behold, in October of last year, they said they're not accepting her maiden name anymore. It took me, the documents that we have to prepare for this year to be the deadline, we started in October. So she prevented us from doing those documents because the secretary's signature has to go on those documents. So it took me 5 weeks to convince her that because the secretary registrar continues to have a government-issued picture ID in her name, in her maiden name, she's authorized to continue using it. So that is the ministry's involvement. The minister all of a sudden does not want to engage me in the public.
All right, but that is one case. The fact is that pharmacies across the country were in jeopardy of not being able to operate because of whatever is the issue between yourself and the ministries.
Pharmacies across the country have been operating like this every year since 1960. Pharmacies don't get registered in time. But we as a responsible body with care for the citizens to get their medication don't enforce the law, knowing that we are responsible for not giving out these licenses in time. Can I go to court now and tell the court, these people don't have a license, and I am the person, I am to prosecute. But I am the one to give the documents to them.
But you know, Mr. Rahman, I want to say though that Mr. Rahman, I want to say though that this is not a new thing. It seems as though every other year there's an issue between the board and the Ministry of Health, whoever that is, and whichever administration is in office, right? And you say that part of the problem is caused by some of your members whom you describe as hooligans, and you point to people who you say are appointees of the minister, and they give the most trouble in these meetings, correct?
So that was the other point, that when we got them to accept that they will accept the maiden name of the secretary, the appointees, the secretary went away for 3 weeks on private business, and the appointees of the minister made sure we did not have a meeting because they are required for a council meeting. One of them, they wanted 14 working days written notice for an emergency meeting.
And these meetings cannot go on without them, because you say that.
No, it can't. No. It cannot go on without at least one of them. Only one is needed. But both, I contacted both, and both said they want a type of notice that would go after the secretary returns. The secretary would have returned already. So one is the ministry's involvement that prevents the licenses from being ready now. One is the minister's appointee, and the last one is the minister himself. The minister wrote a letter. When she came back to Trinidad and we were about to start doing these licenses in December, on the 14th, I got a letter from the minister saying she has resigned. On the 16th, I explained to him why he was mistaken. She did not go up for election, so she is no longer a member of the council. But unlike the nursing council, our act preserves her officership until the election of a successor. So he is mistaken. He is equating being an officer with a member.
You're talking about the minister?
Yes, the minister. He wrote a letter to me on the 14th of December, which I gave to the press in my press conference.
Well, this is a perpetual issue, not so, Mr. Rahman. Relations between the board and the ministry. It happens every other year, if not every year. Not so?
Yes, well, each year is a different each year is a different basket of delays that the ministry imposes. And I'm saying that since the date that I wrote the letter explaining in law, I am the lecturer in pharmacy law for 29 years at UWI and an attorney at law for 24 years. I wrote the letter explaining that she is. And up to today, the minister has not responded to tell me, okay, proceed to bring the documents with her signature. So I am being blamed for not preparing documents. And the ministry has a sustained effort, starting in October with the principal pharmacist, in November with the appointees of the minister, and in December with the minister himself, a sustained effort to ensure that I cannot do the documents to bring to the ministry.
How do you think this issue will be resolved once and for all, if at all we could use that term? Because you talk here in this newspaper report about, you say meetings are there's a particular pharmacist who threatened to burn down your house. This is another one who places, who paces in front of me while the meeting is going on in a very, you say menacing fashion. Without following advice to take his seat. And so,
and And I just want to say that with that, I think they should temper their behavior. And I got a WhatsApp message yesterday concerning removing me by violence.
What do you mean a WhatsApp message? Somebody's threatening you, or somebody sent you a message?
No, there's a group.
To say that this is what is happening?
There's a pharmacist WhatsApp group that
Yeah.
I am in.
Yeah.
And in it, they were discussing, they want me to call the election. And I'm asking them to please provide their legal authority requiring me to call the election. And in it, they were talking about a particular person. This is another pharmacist now, not the same one. It's talking, I can't get to the message now, but it includes something about removing me by violence. Oh, hold on, we could talk, but let me see if I can get the message. So I want to just prove my point about us having this issue of the hooligan behavior of pharmacists. So he is saying in it, he said in the message, we could go to court and so on. He said, or resort to violence. And he put resort to violence in bold.
Yes.
So I am saying that there are 3 questions that have to be resolved. But so how we resolve this thing is that the minister needs to withdraw that letter and tell me that he will accept the signature of the registrar. So I can do the documents and submit the documents to the ministry.
That is for this.
The pharmacy, antibiotic, narcotic control, and pesticide licenses.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, actually, the pesticide license don't have the signature of the pharmacist of the registrar. But long term, the problem. So, one other thing, the minister has done some regulations which are not necessary because this happens every year, and we never heard of people not getting their medication. But I want to say that he seems to be dealing with the public sector only because the private sector needs a pharmacy license. And they need a pharmacy license to come and apply now for the licenses in the ministry.
Who do you think, which agency in the country do you think which agency in the country do you think will be appropriate as a mediator to sort this matter out between yourselves, the pharmacy industry, the pharmacy board, and the Minister of Health, or the Ministry of Health? Because this,
might well
as you say, this
might well be the fourth estate.
You think so?
Report the news in facts and documents, and not hearsay and so on, and not twist. But I say, if the facts remain, and the ministry's officials are bombarded with the facts, it happens all years. They highlight the facts, and it gets fixed.
Well,
that's
the point. What you're saying is this is not new. This sort of gulf between yourself in one case as chairman of the board, the pharmacy association, the membership in the pharmacy association, and the government, the Ministry of Health. This is not new, and it doesn't seem to be.
Despite it being not new, every time I raise an issue that I am going through with them, it ends up that the ministry has to resolve their wrongdoing. So I cannot point, and I wish the press could point to one of the times that I was the wrong one. In this case, I'm giving you all 3 reasons why we are at this point. And people are focusing on it's happening every year.
Right. So you say, okay, if one is to understand what you're saying, that it is not necessarily the issue with this particular Minister of Health. You're saying the Ministry of Health itself has to get its act together when it comes to treating with the matters having to do with the functioning of pharmacies in the country. You're saying something is missing, something is wrong at the Ministry of Health generally?
Yes, but I'm also saying that under this minister, for some reason or
things
the other,
have worsened?
It has been exacerbated. But with all ministers, but I'm still saying it's not the minister heads the ministry. So the ministers have to do their policy to ensure, make their policy to ensure that these things don't happen. So yes, it happened with other ministers in the past, under other ministers in the past.
But it has become intensified under this minister. What is that? Is that because this minister is said to have some kind of facility in the pharmacy industry as well?
Well, no. He, as my information, he used to have a pharmacy. But his interest extends now to, or is restricted now at this point to. He does pay his fees as a pharmacist. Up to last year, he was issued a pharmacy license, a practicing certificate. So
and what is the impact of that? What are the implications of that?
Well, I had called for persons who does not pay fees in my press conference. I'll have to be careful about, because to start examining whether, you see, an increase in fees. The genesis of this is an increase in fees.
Well, this is what
he is responsible for increasing the fees.
And that has become an issue in and of itself, according to the reporting in this paper as well.
That is what started this issue.
Well, I'm afraid
because we could not get the government agency, the minister, to increase the fee, and we cannot operate the board on $12 a month from pharmacists and $70 a month from pharmacies. I had to find a way to generate income, and the way, purely for economic reasons, and being able to meet the expenses of the board. And the way I found to generate income was to ask pharmacists voluntarily, in lieu of the ministry not increasing the fee, the minister, to contribute $50 a month to the pharmacy board.
Yeah, Mr. Rahman, we're going to have to leave it there, but it seems as though there's no end in sight to these issues, and there's no solution up ahead from year to year. But thank you very much for talking with us. It is a matter that requires much more focus than this, much greater focus, more pinpointed kind of focus. But thank you very much for talking with us on this matter.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, we take a break and come back in a moment. Stay with us. This is AM Prime here on WESN.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Welcome back to the program. Efforts continue to get rid of our I would say, interactions with what is called the giant African snail since the Ministry of Agriculture announced its initiative to eradicate the snails through its bounty system, which offers a reward for the capture and submission of these pets. There's been keen interest in the people taking up the opportunity to do that. We want to talk over that and matters related to that with Mr. Riyad Mohammed. He's lead agriculture consultant for tropical agriculture, for the tropical agriculture community in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Mohammed, good to have you.
Hi, good morning. How are you all doing?
Well, good, thanks. How are you?
Good so far. Long night, early morning, but yes, the work continues.
Okay, you say long night, early morning. Talk about the long night.
Oh, I actually have my TV program. I am a host on a TV program on the Islamic Broadcasting Network, Growing Trends. We have every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. where farmers can call, voice their concerns, issues, and we give recommendations for free every Tuesday night.
Okay, so last night was one of those nights.
One of those nights, yeah.
All right, but so talk with us about this matter. Can we in fact eradicate the presence of this giant African snails in our midst? Because it seems to go in peaks and troughs. Sometimes you find 1,000 in the yard, and then weeks later there's none, and then a couple of days later you see 2, 3, and then there comes a time when there's 1,000 again.
Okay, so the term eradication is a bit strong because they were here since 2008. So that's a couple of years now. Well, I don't think we could really eradicate the giant African snail, even if we try really hard. But we could definitely try to control and lower the populations to a manageable level. All right, so that's my thoughts on eradication. I'm guessing you're going forward now with the collection drive.
Yeah.
I love how the collection drive is set out. It's really to be started in the rainy season because these pests operate more, and you see so much more, thousands more in the rainy season than the dry season. However, although the dry season has recently started, we have about 2 to 3 more weeks of moisture on the land. So the ministry took the approach to use this as a pilot project, study time, and observe the responses of the collection of the giant African snails.
So how do they come about in the first place? Where do they come from? How they proliferate when they do?
Okay, so it came in Trinidad as a pet, which was a total disaster and mistake. That's one. Second of all, they are an invasive species, so they are not indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago. It's much more seen in Trinidad than Tobago, thank God. They are hermaphrodites. They live around 9 years, and they lay up to 1,200 eggs per year, so they are supremely prolific, and they consume over 500 different crop species, which is very dangerous to the agricultural or food security community. And the thing is, now we're observing that it's not only in farming areas or agricultural plots. We've seen them on residential, commercial, and even industrial plots. So we really need to take a proper handle on how these pests, proliferate.
But they've been around us for some time now. So what has to happen for us to take this proper handle?
So the collection drive is one aspect or one recommendation going forward. There are many other recommendations set by the National Task Force of the giant African snail. Most farmers use the bait method, which is the metaldehyde baits, or even residents use the iron phosphate baits. Even in the past months, the use of thiazidic carb sprays, that's the active ingredient, those have also been utilized, right? However, the collection method is a all government, all citizen approach to trying to control the pests in the safest possible way in terms of not damaging the environment. However, there are potential health risks if you come in contact with the giant African snail if you're unprotected, meaning that you need to wear your proper gloves and boots and headgear, for example, your goggles, and even your mask when handling these snails. Because the giant African snail is a vector for the rat lungworm, and it can cause meningitis in humans, which is very, very rare, but we also always want to protect ourselves at all times.
But how coming into contact with them can unleash these things? I mean, how do you handle them? I mean, if they get on your hands and then what, you rub your face or?
Yes, through the secretion, or even if you consume. So you would see in the last few days a lot of videos being posted about how to prepare the giant African snail for consumption. Yes, I agree that around different parts of the world, the snail is a delicacy.
What do you mean for consumption? People eat them?
Yeah, people eat them. People eat them in all kind of delicacies, forms, and fashions. All right. However, it has been advised by the Ministry of Health not to consume these snails because these snails are a vector for the rat lungworm, and it can cause a potential health risk. So we advise not to consume the giant African snail at all.
Yeah, and so, well, from what I've come to understand in dealing with them where we are, salt takes them out. Putting salt on them.
Well, so not salt in them, but actually drowning them. What you have to do is to mix a salt solution or a bleach solution, 2 cups of either to 1 gallon of water, either, not both at the same time. 2 cups of salt to 1 gallon of water, or 2 cups of bleach to 1 gallon of water. Collect your snails and you can drown them over a 24-hour period, and they die totally. Even the eggs are damaged.
Yeah, but I mean, putting salt on, you know.
So sometimes when you throw the salt on the snails,
yeah,
most of them don't die. Some may die, and what happens is that the animal goes into the survival mode, thinking it's going to die, and then expels all the eggs.
Yes.
So what you have actually done is force reproduction to happen.
I see. And a lot of people do that. And so when it is secreting, or when it is you know, making a funny sound, as though it's going to die, you're saying that, okay, so it might die or it may not. But in doing that secretion, that's it when it's expelling eggs?
No, the secretion is really when it's moving. It's when you crush these snails with your foot, or you don't kill them properly, or they give out all the eggs at that time, right? It's like the last life mechanism before death, right? So what you actually want to do is to safely, with your gloves, take these snails, put them in the bucket, and drown them over a 24-hour period. And after that, you collect the snails and the eggs, and you dig at least a 2-foot hole and bury them, or you burn them. But you have to get a permit to burn.
It sounds like it's a very complex kind of issue dealing with these pests. And would
you just want to take the proper precautions, yeah. You know, to make sure you're always safe and healthy.
Yeah. But we don't seem to be winning that battle.
It's an ongoing battle, and the thing is, it's an all-governmental approach and an all-citizen approach. It's not only for the agriculture community or the farming community. Everybody should fight against the giant African snail, and I believe if we continue together, it will be controlled.
Well, it's taking some time. So the Ministry of Health is now offering a reward for the capture and submission of the pets, and people have engaged in that.
Yes, so it's actually the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. For the collection drive, they pay $5 per kilogram of snail, live or dead. All right, so that's the collection drive system. So you get some amount of remuneration for your efforts.
So how many snails, let's talk about average size, because I mean, some of them are almost the size of the palm of your hand, or half that, which is huge and so on. How many snails will make up this kilogram?
So the adult size of a snail is the size of your fist.
Precisely.
It's about 20 centimeters long by about maximum of 10 centimeters wide. And between 3 to 5 snails, large snails, could make a kilogram.
And so people actively engaged in that kind of activity and getting them,
yes,
and redeeming them?
Yes, they are collecting these snails and dropping it off at the only 2 designated points at the Ministry of Agriculture, which is Chase Village here in Caroni and the Farm Road Curep office. Those 2 collection points alone, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon only.
Well, why are there just 2 of these locations when you have estates and
when we have so many offices? I believe it's because it's really a pilot study, and we want to try to channel the snails not in every county office, but at least where you could have some more control. So at least 2 offices for now, until the full rollout is done in the rainy season.
And what constitutes the full rollout?
Well, we just have to actually wait out the dry season. We need to collect the data and results from these 2 or 3 weeks of collections, and then see how much more resources we'll need to put in the other locations to do the full rollout at rainy season.
At this point, after this period of trying to treat to these, because it goes back decades when I first began to hear advisories on the radio about treating with the giant African snail. What do you say? Where are we in terms of winning this battle? Can we, in fact, ever think about eradicating them totally?
I really don't think eradication is possible, but control is possible, because it took Barbados almost 7 years to control this pest, and that's just a CARICOM neighbor. All right, and they employed a lot of methods. So I don't want us to take that long, and it was already here since 2008. So I want us to kind of speed up that process and take that all-governmental approach, where we involve the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, the Ministry of Education for education and sensitization, the Ministry of Local Government, and even the Ministry of Health. All of us should come together and try to control this pest species to a level where we don't have to worry about it as much anymore, but still pay attention to it.
Yeah, and what do you think stands in the way of that kind of what you describe as an all-government approach, a whole-of-government approach, as people say?
We need to continue educating the public at all levels, from primary school, secondary school, at the workplace, and even at the public and private sector levels. So education is definitely a must. What we need to do is to have that camaraderie among citizens, using the protective gear and then helping us collect these snails and dispose of them totally. So we really need group work. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, they're repulsive to look at, particularly, those ones, they have the long necks that come out with these radars on top of them, and they could be frightening sometimes when you see them. So people have to get accustomed to.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know that education is part of that process, so you understand the anatomy and physiology of the animal, and you know how things work and function at the scientific level. So, really, education is the driving force behind the control of the giant African snail.
Yeah, and there's much more, you would say, education, public information that is required to treat them ongoing.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, education is the way forward. And the ministry already has discussed several other rollout plans. I am not at this point willing, or I cannot say until it is passed, by the ministers and the PS and those in authority. But there are several. It's a multi-pronged approach to controlling the giant African snail, and the collection drive is just one. There are also incentives for and rebates for when you purchase snail bait that you could access at the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries once you're a registered farm. So all of these incentives will lend towards controlling the pest.
Yeah, so you're saying that there's an initiative in the making, or sort of in the wings, but what stages is that you can't speak about it just yet because it's not finalized?
Yeah, actually, those recommendations were made at least 2 to 3 months ago. It's just the final approvals you'll need to ensure that when it gets to the public, that everybody could utilize that information properly. If it's in terms of accessing more incentives or getting more bait, or you want to use some iron phosphate at home, or you want to use metaldehydes on the field or agricultural fields. So those things are being ironed out at this time.
So you won't or approve, if that's the correct term to be used in this kind of context, the continued use of pot salt to treat them?
No. You, quote unquote, the pot salt, it should be used only when you're drowning these snails, not just to throw on top of these snails. So again, just to reiterate, the 2 cups of salt to 1 gallon of water, you collect your snails, you drop them in, leave for 24 hours, then you strain, and then you bury at least 2 feet underground.
I want to tell you, for some people, it's repulsive coming close to them, farmer to be collecting them and putting them somewhere and dealing with them. I can tell you that from personal experience.
Yeah, I have seen some feedback where some people just cannot touch the snail or even, hold or even kill these snails. But, it must be done. That's the only way we'll try to control them.
All right, so thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed.
No problem. Yeah.
It was good talking to you. We'll see how we can see the backs of these things, if at all that's possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin a look around the region now. We take the story from TVJ. More than $1 billion was robbed from an organization called Stocks and Securities Limited. Let's take a look at that.
More than $1 billion has reportedly been misappropriated from local investment firm Stocks and Securities Limited (SSL), and from all indications it could be higher as investigators probe the incident.
Up to news time, the chief suspect had not been charged. The incident, however, has been sparking debate about whether this is the largest fraudulent scheme locally in recent history. Javon Keys has our story.
TVJ News understands that a former manager at Stocks and Securities Limited (SSL) has been implicated in the fraud. She stole money from roughly 40 investors. According to sources, the fraudulent activity dates back from as far as 2010. It is believed that the employee in question has allegedly been selling shares of SSL clients without their knowledge while providing them with false financial statements. She's represented by attorney Tamika Harris.
I can confirm that I do represent the person the police have some interest in. I can confirm that the person has not yet been charged, and we are in dialogue. I do believe that the police officers want to do a question and answer, and she is making herself available. I have indicated to them her willingness to come in and have that dialogue and have that discussion, and we are arranging a date and time.
SSL confirmed the incident in a statement, indicating that its management, quote, became aware of fraudulent activity by a former employee of the company, unquote. It says, quote, following initial internal investigations, the management referred the matter to the relevant law enforcement authorities to facilitate a thorough and complete examination of all aspects of the matter, unquote. To ensure the integrity of the probe, the company says it has taken steps to secure its assets and strengthen internal protocols to detect suspicious activity in the shortest possible time. The company says it will continue to liaise and cooperate fully with law enforcement throughout the investigation and ensure that the responsible parties face the full consequence of the law. It's understood that the Financial Services Commission, FSC, has mandated a pause in SSL's operations, citing what it calls exposure to possible fraudulent activities. The matter is being investigated by the Fraud Squad with help from the Financial Investigation Division, FID.
And here's this from Barbados now, where the Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, says more mediation on alternative dispute resolution training sessions are needed across the country. That is a report from the Caribbean Broadcasting Network.
Prime Minister Mottley believes the mediation and alternative dispute resolution courses are key, as the country cannot afford to continue with Victorian-era responses to stem the crime wave. And she's been explaining how trained mediators will fit into the legal system.
We cannot win the battle by bringing everybody to Bridgetown. We have to win the battle by resolving conflicts in the communities and the parishes in which they happen. And in those circumstances, it means that the effort to train has only now started. The Attorney General will have a responsibility after consultation for determining what offences and what conflicts ought to be mandatorily referred to mediation, so as to ensure that we do not have to continue to overburden a heavily burdened criminal and civil justice system.
Well heartened by the Prime Minister's comments, Regional Project Director of Impact Justice, Professor Velma Newton, says there are endless benefits to mediation, which are already being seen. She adds training sessions in Barbados and across the region have been well received.
We have sought to develop capacity around the region with the training of 2,210 persons in ADR, including 21 in arbitration, 713 in community mediation, 203 in community-based peace building, and 1,205 in restorative practices.
And during the session, plans were outlined to roll out a mediation course at the Barbados Community College.
The community mediation training is a new course that will be added to our curriculum offerings here at BCC. So not only are we future-proofing our curriculum, but we're also future-proofing our methods of implementation, where we are specifying that any new programs that are implemented must be self-funding. And this is not a new idea, but this stance is taken to ensure that we become more self-reliant financially while delivering affordable quality education.
24 people considered to be influential in their communities were selected for the training session, which runs from January 16th to 20th.
And that story takes us up to the point where we have to take a break. We have news at the top of the hour. On the other side of that, Diane Haddad, chairperson of the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the continued performance of the administration of the Tobago House of Assembly. Stay with us.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. OWTU against RIC's proposed rate increase. THA minority comments on proposed THA reshuffle. Cover contractor charged with forgery. And internationally, search on for last 2 passengers from Nepal flight crash. Now for the details. OWTU Executive Vice President with responsibility for TNTech, Risa Ramlogan Joda, says there remain several issues to be addressed before the RIC proposes any rate increase. She spoke about the issue via WSN's AM Prime on Tuesday.
As a union, we believe that there are fundamental issues that are not only to be identified, but addressed before implementing a rate increase. And these issues are regarding 2 main areas: the onerous power purchase agreement between the power producers, namely PowerGen, Trinidad Generation Unlimited, and Trinity Power, as well as TNTech receivables. And based on what we would have seen thus far, there doesn't seem to be anything to address these 2 key areas.
THA Minority Councillor Daniel Benoit believes that a reshuffle within the THA will see no change because initial promises made during campaigning are yet to be fulfilled, and a reshuffle will not assist that.
I think somewhere along the line, because of the past experiences by the population, there may be a level of distrust, mistrust with what is being said on the part of the administration.
A 41-year-old man was granted bail with a surety in the sum of $60,000 by a justice of the peace after being charged with forgery. Darren Andre Toby, a contractor of Cuva, was charged with uttering a forged driver's permit and forgery. A financial institution reported to the Fraud Squad South Office that on 9th of January, a man presented a Republic of Trinidad and Tobago driver's permit and other documents to a customer service representative in order to open an account. The permit was later found to be fraudulent, and the man was arrested in connection with the matter on the same date. In international news now, searchers have deployed drones to search for 2 passengers still unaccounted for after Nepal's deadliest plane crash in 30 years, which killed at least 70 people. Some rescuers abseiled down the 200-meter deep gorge in search of the missing passengers. Officials say the hope of finding anyone alive was nil. Difficult terrain and inclement weather have been hampering rescue efforts near the tourist city of Pokhara, where Yeti Airlines ATR 72 turboprop with 72 people on board crashed in clear weather on Sunday just before landing. Well, that was your news for the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the program where we're trying to make contact with Ms. Diane Haddad. She's the chair of the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. The question is the state of governance in the sister island. Announcement by the Chief Secretary just before Christmas about a reshuffle to come in the cabinet, in the administration. We could call it the cabinet in Tobago, the conglomeration of the secretaries running different aspects of the country's governance. And what's the state of that, given what has happened in the party within a year of having romped to office in the way that it did 2 Decembers ago? The party fell apart, and all but one of the successful candidates decided to declare themselves independent and resign from the party. What's the situation with that? How has that affected things or not affected things? We will get to her as we head up. But let's take a look at what is happening elsewhere outside of Trinidad and Tobago. And we go to an international story in Senegal, where a bus accident has taken the lives of a number of people. Here's that story.
Beau Maraîcher is Dakar's main bus station. There are mixed feelings here about the banning of nighttime journeys and other measures introduced by the government after 40 people died in a horrific bus crash last weekend. Mohamedou is preparing for a 10-hour ride to Kolda in the south of the country.
The accident was terrible, but I think the actions taken by the government will reduce this kind of accident.
Drivers are less pleased. The government has demanded that they remove storage space on their buses to avoid excessive weight being carried on board, a factor in many of the country's road accidents.
The measures are very difficult for us. We are demanding more flexibility. You can limit the baggage load, but you can never get rid of it altogether. There should have been more consultation before the introduction of measures. We were not consulted, and I doubt these measures will be effective.
On Friday, the Transport Minister met with representatives of Senegal's intercity transport sector in a bid to find common ground. There are fears that the government directives may be ignored.
The application of these measures will not be blinkered. We are obliged to adapt, to inform, and to encourage understanding. That way, we will be able to adjust over time. There is no question of stepping back from any measure taken by the Prime Minister. However, there will be things we need to do to make sure that these measures are accepted and that they cause as little disruption as possible.
One of the most eagerly awaited measures is the renewal of public transport vehicles. On average, these vehicles are 25 years old, according to government figures.
Welcome back, and we're here now with Ms. Diane Haddad, Chair of the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We're talking about matters having to do with governance in Tobago. As we told you, just as we headed back from the news, what the situation was. A year into office, the brand new administration began to fall apart, such that all but one of the successful people for the PDP left the party and operating now as independents. At the end of the year, the chair, the chief administrator, we're going to call him that, he announced, he asked for patience and understanding in presenting the situation in terms of the baking of a cake. He says that it needs the right ingredients and it needs time to get going. Patience and understanding of the people. How is that being absorbed? Ms. Haddad will try and tell us, try and make us understand what is happening there as we speak. Good morning, ma'am. Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Good morning to you and your viewers. time to, what did you say? I didn't hear the excuses for where we are today. So let me hear what.
Well, I was saying that he put the situation in the context of baking a cake, and he demonstrated that very elaborately about having to have the right ingredients, having to wait for them to set, and having to superintend the baking such that it doesn't come out badly. And he was saying that patience and understanding is what is required.
Well, prior to going to bake or to cook, you should have done your research and your homework in terms of ensuring you had A, all the right ingredients, and B, the right persons to actually do the science to get it together to produce the final product. So to come a year or 13 months into the game and say that have patience, we need the right ingredients, and so it speaks to the fact that there was not the right ingredients in the house in the first place, in the kitchen, and that you have deceived the people. It has to be a form of deception if you were to say it the way I'm answering to what you asked.
Yes.
You did not have the right mix and the right ingredients. So while you were campaigning and selling your product out there, you were not speaking truth. And therefore, quickly the kitchen went afire. And I think that's where we are now.
Is there a way out of it with this administration? What will be the way out of the situation? Not going back to the polls. What do you have to do? Go ahead.
I don't know what the way out is. Let me start by saying that, because, of course, there are legal technicalities involved, of which I'm not an attorney and won't attempt to give my view there. However, at the same time, what we have cannot sustain the positive direction for an island and the economy and the people. And therefore, it needs to be addressed. Whether we have the time and the patience that has been asked for, I think we have had enough of time and patience. And therefore, we need to have some answers, because we can't sit and be dragged along, which we have been done with for the last 12 months. Let me be clear. It's been a promise and a dragging of timelines and going on and on. So even the reshuffle that we had heard was taking place, now the reshuffle is before the end of the month. And we keep going, maybe the reshuffle will drag into February, and maybe it will be. So there's this strategy of dragging people's patience and hope down the road with no positive results. So I'm not sure that asking for patience at this time, but whether the answer, you asked if there is a way out, there's always a way out. There are different formulas. It depends on how the people choose to create the way out. But there is always a way out of everything that you get into.
What would you say is the state of affairs in the relations between the administration and critical sectors, such as the business sector, such as the people's sector? There's this organization that came up in the wake of the move to the last election, the Tobago Civil Net organization, which purported to speak for, we want to say, just the general public. What's the state of discussions taking place with the administration and these various interest groups, if any?
I don't think that there is any in any meaningful way, even if there is. I think it has been a hoax so far, for whatever small discussions that there were. And the survey and results from CivilNet and the seniors, there's a group, some seniors group that seems to have had some measure of experience, brain matter, intellect that was put together. And in doing the surveys, it has come out very clearly that the answer is not a good one. People are not comfortable. The ratings have gone from, I think in some instances, 80-something% to 20-something%. So I think there's a serious disappointment on the ground where I walk a lot, having to just do my own stuff. People ask a lot of questions. People are fed up. They said that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Only last night, being at the airport, I saw that there was just one taxi driver outside. And when you ask, the others have gone home. They don't feel a sense of what are we doing there if there's nothing coming through the door for us to capture? So some of them have told me that they actually just go down now for bookings that they may get from persons they knew from years ago, and they just hold on to that to try and get by. Some have told me that their children help them pay their bills because what they're bringing in as the father or head of the home into the house is not working. I have also been told that some persons were sent home, all the promises of not sending persons home, and that the transition could take place of building private sector and creating jobs that are valuable for the households and the individuals was what the mandate was. That's what we were sold on. And therefore, the transition of the heavy government offices would eventually move without really displacing persons, because it's a small place, and therefore other persons would have opportunity. Instead, what I'm hearing is in some cases, both husband and wife were employed at the THA, and they're both home now with their children, or one child or two children, trying to get it together to pay the bills and keep the roof over their heads. So I'm not even sure what type of humanity was dealt with in aspects of a small space that carries people who are quite entwined as family and very close. I find the behavior to be very draconian, very, some of the words that I would like to use is not television appropriate. So I don't think that it's working very well.
So people are sour based on the results of their own choices? Sorely disappointed. Hopeless would be the feeling, because remember, persons would have, this was a very PNM-powered environment, which they had worked on for years, and so persons were, for want of a better word, I don't think they were well developing, they were benefiting from different forums, and therefore they were able to live and enjoy life to a particular degree. On the island here, life is not a sense of effervescence, as has never been, because people have to continuously try to get by with all of the different things that we have that affect the island. And you know that from interviews we would have done with transport and the air bridges, sea bridge, things like that, that affect the movement of stuff. So the fact that the boat comes in the night and the people have to work in the night as well as the day, it's a different life altogether to what takes place in Trinidad. And so it's not effervescent and it's not a bubble. It's definitely, it doesn't give you that champagne feeling. But clearly, to have moved the island from there to a different form of dictatorship, of draconianism and that type of thing, I don't think it's sitting very well. It's just that people do not know, as you may have said it, where to turn. Because if we made such a powerful move to move what was there, to say, okay, we're giving this a chance, and it was the young people who would have said, we felt subdued, we felt that our talent and our opportunities were being, really played off, then they made a bold move, and now they are wondering what's their future like, because they can be victimized if the other party gets back in power. So what you're hearing them saying is, but look at the move we made, but look what's happening now. So where do we go from here? So there's a lot of that in terms of almost, I don't want to say fear, but I want to say worry. Where do I go from here? What is it? I have spoken to, up to yesterday, a father of a home told me that he has told his sons to get out of here and go find a life elsewhere, because don't look to come back here if that's what we are experiencing. This is somebody who believes in Tobago, who has said it publicly, that he really believes in his island and was not going anywhere, born bred. So where are we? So it's a huge sense of disappointment on the streets then, from what you're saying?
Yes, we had this session called Let the People Speak in December, and we are hosting another one on the 26th of January at the library, the Scarborough Library, from 4 to 7. And we would have done presentations on economics, what's how an economy runs. It was really, broken down for everybody to try and understand where our failings were. We had a solution presentation on tourism and so. And then we had a business owner who would have spoken of his direct experiences under the administration. And then we had the floor speak. And from the floor came a lot of interesting comments. One that has stuck in my head, and pardon my language, I'm repeating it, is a gentleman who has been quite a good manager on the island for things that he would have done, actually with the assembly and entities like that. Retired now, so I guess it's easier to speak. And he would have said that, let's call a spade a spade. They are doing tata. He said they can't call it anything else. And so persons are coming out and saying, look, we voted for you and you are messing up, or you have messed up already. So where we go, Andy, it really is dependent on the people of this island, whether they are fed up enough to turn it all upside down, whether they are fed up enough to call for something else. What are they fed up enough to do? Because I'll tell you something. Under the last administration of 21 years, many persons are 15 years older, 12 years older, 20 years older, and therefore they are at the stage where, they've lost the life, the bubble in their life in terms of trying to fight to get somewhere. And so it's their children that really have to pick up the pieces. And if you watched your parents suffer through doing business in that manner, there's going to be no bite or interest in them going to want to take over the businesses that the parents have, although they struggled with it, because it seems as though, but there's always a problem. Where's this big glory about being an entrepreneur? Where's this big fame about making money? I haven't seen you make any money. Instead, I have seen my father from worries die. I didn't take care of his health or whatever because he was there always probably attending meetings or listening to you, frustrating yourself over whatever it takes. And so why am I going there? I now have a family, a young family. So let me get a job and let me just go and do what everybody else is doing. So I think that in itself speaks to the fact that we are taking away that inside of each one of us where we are supposed to self-develop and grow.
So if an election were to be called in this period here, that will sort of add to the agony of the people because you thought that you made a move for the better, and so soon after you have to make another move, and that will be just so many times more confusing and dispiriting to the people.
That's correct, but I would tell you this, there are a few people who fought with me from February of last year until December of last year. When I say fought with me, we would have banters back and forth in the night on the phone. We will have discussions, and persons were fighting with me hands down that, just give them a chance. I said, listen, there have been certain things that they did not do on entering that office. And therefore, I'm telling you, watch to see what's coming. But they are not who they say they are. And that was determined by me early o'clock. It didn't take 3 good months because there are certain things that they should have done that were small things in their mandate that they had, that they won an election on, that they did not do. So somebody either is behind the scenes pulling strings, or Mr. Augustine himself has the behaviors of a dictator. Either one, whichever it is, I can't say, but the truth will always reveal itself.
Well, I think, from very early, you were pointing to misgivings that you had because you began to see things that were not consistent with what was sold to the people. And I give you credit for that from early o'clock. And I imagine there were people who were saying, well, why are you so anxious, over anxious to see things happening, sort of right out of the door the next day. But you're saying that I think that kind of insight is bearing itself out now because.
Man is Man's behavior speaks more than what he says by his mouth and what he does with his hands. And if we are in tune with behavioral patterns, we will recognize where somebody or somebodies are heading. And anytime people cannot keep their commitment, their verbal commitment, you see, we bring people to these legal documents that they all have to sign and sign and sign, but those are really technicalities. If your word cannot mean anything, then paper becomes irrelevant. Those type of people are tricky, they are made of trickery, and they will find ways to treat with the document. So, quick example, I had a scenario where I would have bought some material from a particular place in Trinidad, and because of the contractor who was doing what it was, the material was given to him. Although it was new stock that came in, the material was given to him immediately and it was invoiced. But because they did not get to do their costings in time, the price between what it was on the system prior to the new stock coming in and the price, let's say now, was a difference of $555 on every roll plus VAT. That's a lot of money. And I was called by the young man working at the place and told what was happening. And he started to try to go to technicalities with me. And I said, listen, if you're going to have a technical conversation with me and try to go down that road, I am telling you that I will not pay. Because the truth is, I have a bill, I paid it in full, and I got my material, and it's actually on whatever I bought it for. The job is done. However, if you speak to honesty, ethics, conscience, morality, and we can have the discussion where an error was made, and I understand because I'm in business, that's a different conversation. He backed down immediately. We had the conversation, and I prepared the money to give him the difference of a couple $1,000 it was, plus VAT, in terms of what the error was. Because I understood that there was a favor done to the guy who had the contract because of the timelines. And okay, in their haste to get it done, somebody keyed it as the old price, but I understand that prices of goods are changing daily in this country. And therefore, because of that, it can happen as human error. Okay? But this is why I'm speaking. We have to speak to honesty and morals and ethics. And we seem to have lost those words, or we have new meanings for them. Or we feel that by being tricky and turning around the language to suit what we want to get out of because we did wrong, then we can fool the majority of persons. We need to get past that, Andy. We really need to get past that because we're not healing this country in any way.
Yeah, and a solution is not to be found in this promise of a reshuffle of the cabinet.
Well, I can't see that that is a solution. Let's go back to the working of the THA. You have a chief secretary. He has held the two head honcho posts. He has headed the chief sec post, which has a very powerful pen. And he has the secretary of finance, which has a similarly powerful pen. Our findings are a lot of contracts were given out. Of course, they were in the newspaper to persons from Trinidad for tidy sums of money. Some of the work, people are calling in and saying that the road is already drifting, slipping, falling through Smithfield. We are hearing that, I have no idea if it's true, but I understand that equipment brought down in the Crown Point area to do the work down there, that equipment was burnt or it may have been dealt with in some negative way. By who and what, I don't know. But contracts are given out for $54 million, $19 million, $20 million, nothing being shared on this island to the people who have invested here. Most recently, we heard that a lot of the security contracts from the Agriculture Division were pulled and given to a security firm from Trinidad who had just formed a base here a short while ago. So it seems as though the mantra or the mandate was to kill the Tobago private sector and invade the space with our counterparts, friends, financiers, etc. I don't understand it.
Yeah, so many questions have to be, many things have to be gone into. There are questions that are in search of answers, but we got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Ms. Haddad.
You're most welcome. You'll have a great day. Thank you.
Your frankness and forthrightness all the time on these issues. Well, that will do it for us for this edition of the program. We thought we had time to give you a taste about Bunji Garland's Big Bad Soca. We'll save that for another edition of the program. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank our guests and tell you that in half an hour's time, there'll be news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. And to remind you that you could check us out here on all our social media platforms. You could send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Andy Johnson. We'll see you tomorrow.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.